Upgrades. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review brought to you from the Tribeca Film Festival. This film here is a film that I missed at Sundance, that I really, really wanted to see there, and I got to check it out here. And that is Luther, Never Too Much. And here's a quick synopsis. Luther, Never Too Much chronicles the life of the iconic musical performer from childhood musical talent to worldwide fame and explores his collaborations, influences, characters, and relationship with family, friends, and fans. And this is directed by the amazing Don Porter, who is, if you've ever seen a doc by Don Porter, you should know the ride that you're in here with Luther, Never Too Much. Let's start off with what I think a lot of people are going to tune into this doc to see. This doc does not get overly personal into Luther Vandross' life. That's what most people would love to see in a doc. I found myself, as I was watching this, wishing they would spend more time on that element of Luther, because that's the side that we didn't know that much about, whether it be his sexual orientation or his other relationships. Stuff of this nature is stuff that no one knew in the world. And everyone wants to know it, and everyone's going to think about, I'm going to go see this doc, and that's what the portion of it that I can't wait to see. It's not in here. it's little hints towards it. It's little mentions of through the years, certain friends of his, most famously Patti LaBelle on the show with Andy Cohen, when she confirmed Luther Vandross' sexuality, but Luther didn't talk about it, and I think it was a brilliant decision to decide in this doc. When he was alive, he never talked about it. That was nobody's business. As he's saying on the doc, the only thing you're owed are these songs. You're not owed anything else from me. And me performing, that's it. Nothing else is owed to you. And he didn't get into his personal life, and I love that they didn't get into his personal life, but instead we get a doc that focuses on one of the most amazing career stories humanly possible. in the history of music here. As it starts off in early life with Luther, and we see how he came up in singing, how he formed his group. It's a beautiful story about how he formed his first group and how he made everyone get matching emerald shoes for the group, and just his friendships, because that's the key element of this whole doc, is just how kind he was to his friends. But then after that, we go through the years, the progression to him playing on Sesame Street when Sesame Street first came out. And then it is focused on his weight a lot. Because even back then, it was issues of him being a fat black man that, he's not the person you want to put in front of the camera, no matter how talented he is. And you can see it from early clips, and that's another beautiful thing here. This is a documentary with some of the best footage humanly possible. I don't know if Luther had someone following him around all the time, but the point that they got so much amazing footage of him throughout the years, it blew me away, because we don't see musical docs like this too often, where we get this much footage. We normally get the big performances that everyone knows, because they're everywhere humanly possible for you to pull up at any given moment. A lot of this footage seemed like footage that you would never have seen if you didn't see the doc, and I love the point that we had that. But then you go from that, you go to his stint as a backup singer and a songwriter and a song arranger. Like, personally, I did not know he really got one of his biggest breaks is with David Bowie on the All American album, and him vocal arranging a track there, and that helped blowing him up, and him becoming a background singer for him, and then him spreading that on to a multitude of other huge names, and just how successful he was just playing the background and just doing jingles. So way before we knew the voice of Luther Vandross, and now you get to go back and look up some of these old commercials or hear these old songs that are not Luther songs, but he's clearly in the background, and the voice is undeniable when you hear it in the background. Like, those are some of the best stories humanly possible. And again, with this footage, stuff that we don't get to see too often. And for a younger audience who already Luther is a legacy artist, a lot of them don't know his story, but now you get to go back and dig deeper into other people's story that are related to Luther's story. That unto itself is amazing. And then after that, we get the trajectory of him reaching superstardom. Everything humanly possible. Him being an amazing songwriter, an amazing producer, amazing at almost everything humanly possible. But the key part of Luther, and the key part that most people will remember about Luther, is the weight issue and his relationship with food. And here in this documentary, they don't focus too much on his relationship with food as much as they focus on him attempting to get dieting under control. At one point in time, one of his friends said it was always all or nothing with Luther. He was either on a diet all the time or he wasn't all the time. It was never an in between. So then we get as famous Cedric the Entertainer said, to the skinny Luther period. And then you hear some of the ugly comments after he worked extremely hard to lose 120 pounds to some people. When a famous magazine article came out about him being homosexual and having the AIDS virus as the reason that he lost the weight. And you get to see an amazing shot of an interview with him as he's talking about it, and you can hear the hurt and anger in his voice, just even having to address that. But also just in other times, even when people were making fun of his weight, and Luther gave it back to them all the time, because it seemed like his defense mechanism was his humor. You still understood the hurt that he didn't like that people even talked about that. And we get to see at times that back in that time period, the outer shell image overtook his talent. Like there's no doubt about it. He's possibly the most talented male singer of all time. And yet and still, people focus way more on his weight dieting, his weight losing, his weight gaining than they did, just to understand that you're in the presence of a one of a kind gift that you won't see again. And that's the tragedy of this story, is that we have to deal with these things. We have to deal with the weight gain and how that affected him. We got to deal with the accident when he lost a friend and how he was in such good shape, spirits, and then that brought back on all the weight and just how uncomfortable he felt being back in the public after putting on the weight, after losing it and then putting it all back on again and feeling guilty about it. Like those are the stories you need to hear, because maybe someone else will see this doc and think, if Luther Vandross can go through this and I'm going through this now, maybe I can find the strength that he did find eventually too. Like just not care what people think and understand I need to push through this. It's that part is an amazing story. And then we get to the vocal stuff, the songs that everyone knows, and how he remade a multitude of people's songs, or how he came up with his famous, which I'm not going to do, his famous little thing that he does with his his voice and his songs, and how it came from him doing it in a jingle because a director asked him to do something a little special. He did it, and then that was the last time he did it for a jingle, and he saved it because he knew then what he did was extremely special, and then that transferred to all the rest of his music and songs. And we get to see him workshopping different groups, workshopping different songs as he's attempting to make his break before he got to Never Too Much, which took off. And then when that took off, Luther went, he skyrocketed. Everything was a hit, humanly possible. And then you get to hear the stories about him working with Aretha Franklin and producing hit songs and albums for her, or Dionne Warwick producing and writing hit songs for her. Like, this is a doc where you get to appreciate just how great he was. Like, this is not normal greatness for a singer that they do everything that Luther was doing. Like, you hear a great singer, but that don't mean they're a great songwriter. You may get a great songwriter, but that don't mean you're a great vocal arranger. You're not a great producer. Luther was he was a one-man band. Like, he could literally do everything humanly possible. And this doc did a great job of highlighting that to you, while also showing like certain things that he went through in his life. His yearning to find someone to love is an ongoing theme in this doc that can break your heart as they get to one particular song by Luther that really talks about his Any Love song. And just to hear someone explain, like, he's not singing about finding someone to love. He's like singing that I just need to find anybody to love. Like, just the heartache behind that type of thing. As much of like people would hear it and know it's a great song, but then you get that message behind it, it kind of transforms exactly what that song is and what it meant to Luther. Like, that's what this dog does a great job of. It does a great job of just explaining Luther's story and saying, like, unlike his career, where we focused on weight loss, where people focus on sexuality at times, where they focus on everything besides his talent, this doc does the job of saying, we are here because this man was superhuman in his talent. And that needs to be appreciated beyond anything else. Yes, he had his own personal struggles, again, with weight, with other things, and they are discussed in this doc and discussed well. But all of the other outside noise, the gossipy stuff that people want to hear, that's not important. Because that wasn't about Luther. He was about the music and the songs. So check it out when it comes out. But this is Luther Vandross, Never Too Much. I want to say this film has distribution already, so I'm just not 100% sure because I saw it at the film festival. But I want to say, I think CNN Films picked it up. I don't necessarily know the release date of Never Too Much, but I know they picked it up. So it's probably going to be coming out, I would think, rather soon for you to check it out. But again, Luther, Never Too Much, brought you from the Tribeca Film Festival. Out of a possible 10, I'm going to give Luther, Never Too Much a 10 out of 10. This is a perfect doc. It is great. Again, unless you are someone who just wants to be all about in his business of something he never discussed when he was alive, then you can find the flaw in it. Other than that, you're here for a doc that is showing you someone who was extraordinarily talented and everything he did. Once you start going through the gambit of the artists that he helped and the things that he did, and then you start hearing his voice on different people's songs that you didn't know before it was his voice, but the moment you hear it now, it's definitely his voice. And you hear this and you hear these stories. You hear how he was making a fortune as a background singer. Like, he didn't even, at no point in time did he need to be a lead artist. He wanted that for himself. He wanted to be a lead artist. He wanted to sing his own songs. But Luther could have just been a songwriter and made a career that would have been unmatched by anybody and never sung a lead song before. He could have been a background singer and made millions of dollars. It's so interesting just to hear that he was able to get himself out of poverty, his mom a new house, all of this other stuff off of him singing background for people. He was the number one background singer in New York. Everyone wanted him. And just to hear, like, his big break was singing background. And then he decided out the blue, I'm just going to do a song, and then I'm just going to shut everyone else down. And I'm just going to top every chart humanly possible. I'm going to go on this historic run of love songs that's going to be unmatched by anyone ever in history. Like, just to hear those stories and to hear the love and admiration from his friends as they're talking about everything with Luther. Even later on in life with Luther, as we get to his record, his album on J Records, and that relationship with Clive Davis, and down to his last record, Dance with My Father, and you hear how that came to fruition around the time of his passing and all that, and everything that encompassed with that. Again, these are great stories. That's what you're going to tune in for. You're going to want to sing. You're going to want to dance. I say this is the type of doc that you would want to see with a great group of friends who understand what great music is and just enjoy what you're watching with a nice adult beverage. And just enjoy yourself. This is that type of doc to do that too. But check it out. Let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review brought to you from the Tribeca Film Festival. Peace, people.